But the argument that they find, I think, the most compelling is what I call the moral argument.
Does God exist? Today we're going to look at a fascinating dialogue between William Lane Craig and Ben Shapiro as they prove the existence of God through logic, using an argument William Lane Craig describes as the most compelling argument that he uses for university students today. Whether you believe in God or whether you don't, I'm Michael Goff here at Chronicles of Clarity to help illustrate and show some of the intricacies of the moral argument. I have 3 things you must understand about the moral argument. So, without further ado, let's listen to William Lane Craig and Ben Shapiro.
You can ignore philosophical arguments for the finitude of the past or scientific evidence for the beginning of the universe. But the argument that they find, I think, the most compelling is what I call the moral argument. And it would go like this. 1, if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. That is to say, in the absence of God, everything becomes socioculturally relative. 2, but objective moral values and duties do exist. There are some moral absolutes, some objective values and duties. 3, therefore, God exists. Now, this is an argument which is impossible, I think, to ignore, because every day you get up, you answer by how you treat other people, whether you regard them as having intrinsic moral value or whether they are mere means to be used for your ends. And so this argument, I find, tends to be the most convincing for people.
So here are 3 things you must know. And the first one we address is found in the first premise. Just as a reminder, I'll restate the first premise. It goes like this. If God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. In that first part, if God exists, is my first point. The existence of God, not a belief in God. Premise number 1 does not say, if you believe in God. It says, if God exists. And this is misunderstood by so many people. And maybe misunderstanding isn't exactly the right word. It's a reinterpretation. I found one time when I was discussing this with a friend of mine, he did this exact thing. I stated the first premise, the second premise, and the third, and his immediate response is, I don't have to believe in God to be good. But of course, that's not what the first premise says. It says if God exists. And that is the key to this argument. The second thing you must know is also found in premise 1, and that is this: the difference between objective and subjective truth. That means no matter what anyone else thinks, it would be a true statement that it is indeed wicked to kill innocent people. That would be objectively true. By way of example, if the Nazis had won the war, it would still be the right position to say, objectively, it was wicked and evil what they did. They murdered innocent millions. That is an objective truth. If objective is mind independent, you can think of subjective as mind dependent. That is, it's how you think or feel about something. Perhaps you like pepperoni and cheese pizza over sausage and cheese pizza. That's a subjective thing. It's not objective. No time in history can we say that pepperoni and cheese pizza is the one standard of all pizza. And the third and final thing you must understand about the moral argument is this. People believe objective moral duties and values exist because they live that way. That's how we know they believe them. So you might find in this argument that someone accepts premise 1. In fact, many atheists do accept premise 1. And so do university students, right? They're taught that they don't want to infringe their view or rights on anyone else and impose their views. They often think in moral relativistic terms. That is, there's no objective standard. But then when they get to premise 2, that's where they run into a lot of trouble, because many folks also believe that there are some things that are actually wrong. So much in our culture today is trying to push into love one another and do kindness to one another. And that's great and that's wonderful. But when you have been taught or you believe that all things are morally relative, who's to say what's good or bad? There's no objective anchor. And we know that people really believe that moral values and duties exist, because indeed they live as though they do. And as Jordan Peterson has often said, you should watch out what people act out into the world, not necessarily what they say. And if you're a fully integrated person, you would hope that those would align, that what you say and what you act out in the world are one and the same. But he said, if you have to choose, watch what people do, not what they say. Those are the top 3 things you must know about the moral argument. Hey, thanks for watching Chronicles of Clarity. If you found this video helpful, we ask that you share it on social media. We would love if you would like and subscribe. And if you'd like to see future content like this, please comment below and let us know. Until next time, it's Michael Goff at Chronicles of Clarity.